Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think one of the reasons why, in a couple of days ago, I was on your side. I was thinking, hey, why don't we should allow delivery from a storefront? But after chewing on that a little bit, it kind of hit me. I go, well, wait a second. And so we need to put on our reality hat for a quick second and say, how many of those cards that people get for recommendations, medical recommendations, are fraudulent? You know, and let's just be real with ourselves real quick. It's a huge majority, a chunk, big, almost all, I would almost want to say. So I could see how allowing medical in a storefront would quickly change the dynamic from a taxed product to a non-taxed product.
I'm talking about medical versus.
Right.
I'm talking about delivery.
So what would happen then is you would see a taxed product quickly become non-taxed by virtue of a simple card that you can get anywhere for a couple of bucks. So so I think, when I see that, then it's like, well, maybe for that reason, and on top of the public safety, I couldn't support that. I just think that it's just going to be a tremendous amount of fraud. So let me go back to my beginning. I was just thinking about that as you finished up. With regards to things to staff to look at, one of the things that we looked at with regards to security was the video monitoring, but I didn't see anything in there I would like to see, include off-site storage for that video, just to make sure that nothing happens to that video inside that premises, that we have some type of backup. And with Mr. Perdo's comments as well, the 150, I know I brought that up a little bit, and I too would like to see that a little bit stretched out a little bit longer. I don't know, 600 to 1,000 feet, and looking at this map, I think I need to be fair. You know, personally, if I could make it illegal, I would, just so you know, but I think we need to be fair. So again, I'm going to go back to the 350. Maybe staff looks at looking at that and getting rid of the barriers, and so maybe somebody could have on 3rd Avenue a shop mid-block, but there's no way you can get to residential within that 350 feet. That would, I think, open up the ability for somebody to have a shop in some of those areas. I too think that the unlimited grows and cultivation manufacturing presents a problem. In talking to other folks in other jurisdictions, what they tell me is, Mike, go slow. And so I think we should go slow. I think that number should be small, and maybe we look at it as we move on, and maybe we add some more, or maybe we don't. But I think if as a kid growing up, I had a small little boat that my dad had, and we'd go out and play with it, and we could turn that thing on a dime. But you make that a 350-foot vessel, we can't turn that thing around. And so I think that by creating unlimited, it's going to be hard to put the brakes on that. So I think we should, again, we are all pioneering here, and we need to make sure we know where the arrows are coming from, right? So let's go slow. I also agreed with the public speaker with regards to the community public relations. Maybe we look at a city employee taking on that role instead, where maybe the community can feel a little bit better coming to the city and making that call, or that posting something on the city email system or something, whatever. I kind of like that as well. I think it kind of made sense. Keeping the CPU, I think, to 1 year is a good idea for the same reasons we just talked about, the unlimited sites for the grows and all that stuff. Many members that spoke tonight spoke about funding for a lot of different things, and most of it was public safety. Again, we need to make sure that when we come up with the amount for that sales tax, I know that we're kind of throwing darts right now. I don't think it's throwing darts. I think it's like pinning the tail on the donkey. We don't know where we're pinning that. I think we need to make sure that, and I don't know where we're at with the impact study, but I know that we definitely should have funding for education, prevention efforts, and other things that people talked about. Kids smoking in the parks. Are we going to need more resource officers? We need to make sure that we take that into account. I think in some of the studies that I've seen, high school students now are, and I know that Manolo probably knows this a lot better than me, but students now are using marijuana multiple times during the week, not just like once a month or once a week, multiple times. I think the rate is up to like 15-20%. And so that's a huge problem. I could be wrong, but I know whatever that number is, it's high. And so so we need to make sure we have resources for that on the public safety side. Somebody talked about voting for applicants, that this council should vote for applicants. I just don't think that's a good idea. I think that turns this council into a political machine that I don't know that the public wants. There's a tremendous amount of money in that industry, and I don't see that. I would not want to see that industry controlling this city council. As a matter of fact, I had discussions earlier today, and maybe even making the section in here, I don't know where it is right now, where we can determine whether to increase or lower the amount of dispensaries. The city council could do that, but I think that it should be a 4/5 vote. But I know that there's issues with that. Maybe the city charter commission should look at that, where simple 3 people in the council could change that requirement, which doesn't make any sense to me. So maybe that's something we need to look at in our city charter to strengthen that. 4/5, right? We always tell everybody no means no. Well, 4/5 means 4/5, right? The other thing is somebody was talking about California voters voted to legalize this, and one of the speakers kind of went and talked about that a little bit. But I think we need to be clear that the California voters voted to allow the recreational use of marijuana, and more importantly, because I'm sitting here, they also voted for me and this council to make that decision, right? And that's what we're doing. So just because, so we voted not to, out of hand, legalize the sale in every community. We voted to have your elected officials determine that, or via the initiative process. And that's what we're doing right now. The problem with people kind of look at the alcohol and the marijuana and they go, well, alcohol is just as bad, is an issue as well, could be a bigger issue. But I think what we're seeing today, it's not one drug. If you start looking at the fatalities out there in vehicle accidents, it's poly-drug use. It's heroin, marijuana, alcohol, marijuana, alcohol, and other drugs, opioids. So the problem is we're just introducing more opportunity for DUID accidents and fatalities and those kind of things on the roadway. So we need to be careful and realize that that's the reality. I think Mrs. Wilcox, again, talked about we need to fund enforcement. Whatever we do, we need to fund enforcement. We need to make sure that our community is safe, and we need to do that. Judy Strang, same thing. We have, quoting her, we must have the capacity to enforce, which means we need to hire more police officers to make sure that we have that safety mechanism in place to protect the community. And one of the speakers said it best: we are being blackmailed, and it's our job, though, to make sure that the public is safe. The reality is, for this lonely council member, is that I don't like the marijuana. I don't. But as Manolo also said, the reality is we're going down that road. So for me, I will support legalizing it, but we need to do it slowly and methodically. And I don't know if I can say it in the same sentence, but it needs to also be the safest we can make it for the community, which I don't know that we'll ever get there, but to the extent possible, I think we need to do that. With regards to applicants and criminal backgrounds, somebody said that, they have been criminalized. Well, in my book, you don't wake up one morning and open up a box of Cracker Jacks and get the prize out and you're a criminal. It's an act that you did that created that. And so I think in this policy that we need to get squeaky clean players. And the good news, I think, is there are plenty of people out there that are squeaky clean, that can get into that business. We are a capitalistic society. I think it'll happen. Storefronts. We always talked about that with Councilmember Aguilar. PR, the community PR folks have talked about that. I think I'm almost done. I think I got one more thing here. And the advertising, I also like to, but this is my last point, I'd like to make sure to see that, if we can look at that, the advertising with regards to alcohol, so apparently there are some things that we can do. I'd like to see if we can come back with some more information on how the state deals with alcohol business and how they restrict our advertising. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Padilla.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thanks again to the staff